Afternoon and welcome to round 8 of the 2019 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the Circuit Pour in Le Castellet for the French Grand Prix, the practice session to be exact. I'm JW97 and I'm joined today by the now retired, I should say, Panos Sakuras. How are you doing?
Hello all, I'm fine. Joseph, I hope we have a nice day here in France with the practice.
Indeed, definitely. The Circuit Pour in my opinion, probably one of the most underrated tracks, I think, on the F1 calendar. I think a lot of people, particularly I'd say a lot of people like to basically judge a book by its cover, essentially, with the Circuit Pour card. It's like that term, never judge a book by its cover. I think mainly the reason why people hate it is because lots of runoff, and also the fact that there's about 167 layouts you can get out of it. Only one of them being FIA Grade 1. So,
Yes.
Anyway, we are here at the Circuit Pour Ricard. We should hopefully get a link. We should get the stream on our end on Discord very soon. And we should hopefully get underway with practice very, very soon. Now, last time out in Canada, well, let's just call it a disaster, shall we, in the host terms. And not speak about it anymore, apart from that Joseph Willows won the actual race that counted, because there was obviously a restart that happened due to problems with it, but he ended up winning the actual race that counted towards the championship, which in turn means he now finds himself 14 points behind Franco Lopez in the championship. So, as we go here to France, a track which Franco Lopez actually won here last season when we first came to Paul Ricard, it should be quite an interesting one. Well, we're here. It's a bright and sunny day for practice. Whether it will be the same for qualifying, we'll have to wait and see. But I think without further ado, let's get into it. So now I do believe there is a test driver out today from memory. I believe, hopefully Yuri remembers. I think he has. And it's only one test driver. Thankfully, it's not a GP2 driver because, as we know, GP2 got pushed back to the weekend, the French Grand Prix. But luckily, it isn't a GP2 driver taking part. It is Oliver Glazebrook from McLaren who's taking part in practice today in place of, I believe, Kirishima De Rosa due to the fact that he's lower in the championship compared to Paolino Tomaselli, who I think at the moment is best of the rest when it comes to the midfield teams. So it should be.
Yes, he is.
He is. So he's 7th place ahead of Roland Motrin, who surprisingly is up in 8th place. I think a lot of people have been surprised by Roland's season, to be honest. But anyway, we're here in the garage now, here at the Circuit Pour Ricard. And as you can see, we just saw there that Oliver Glazebrook is in the car, so he will be taking part in this practice session and hopefully getting some running for McLaren before handing back to Kirishima De Rosa for qualifying. So, 25 minutes of the session, and so far, how have you made the championship? How have you made the let me try again. How have you made this season's championship so far, Panos? You think it's been a good one so far?
Well, yes, it turns out to be an interesting championship between Lopez and Willows. And car will probably get there. It looked like Mercedes is still quickest, but Ferrari is still there. Red Bull shows some signs of pace, but not as good as it seems. But the big deal is the midfield, which changes in almost every race. They're so close.
Indeed, definitely.
It's an alright season so far.
It has been, definitely. I kind of cut you off there, I do apologise. But yes, you are right, the midfield has been changing quite a lot during the course of the season, of course. One team that has kind of consistently been getting into Q3 recently is Toro Rosso. They've been doing well so far in qualifying. The car seems to have definitely made a step up compared to last season, although you'd have to say the consistency hasn't been there so far for the Italian team.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, they have some great qualifying pace, but on race they fall back, they're unlucky, and in a midfield like that, you need to have consistency. It can cost you, especially in race to have pace early on.
Indeed, and
yes, Toro Rosso is a positive surprise, alongside Alfa Romeo, I should say.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo have been definitely a surprise.
Really good.
Alfa Romeo has been definitely a surprise this season. I didn't really expect them. I mean, obviously they had a good season last season, of course, to finish in 6th, but I didn't expect them, judging from the testing, to continue that. But it seems so far they've continued that pace, although the last few races, last couple of races, they has kind of dwindled for them a little bit. They'll be hoping to try and pick that up here at Paul Ricard as David Kupok starts his first lap here in practice, and he'll be the first to get a time on the board. So, obviously, We are here at the French Grand Prix, moving away from Canada, because as we know now that Canada will not be on the calendar from the 2020 season onwards, and it will not be replaced. So the 2020 season will just be a 21 race calendar like we've been used to. Of course, it's still a mystery about what will happen with Hanoi next season in terms of what will replace that, because if I'm being completely honest, I don't think that track's going to be made in time for the 2020 season, and I think Yuri has probably come to that same conclusion as well. But anywho,
they never race there in real life anyway.
Well, actually, yeah, that is true.
Yes.
To be fair, they made the track, but unfortunately, due to COVID, we never actually got to see the track. And given what's been going on recently with the people who run the track, who knows whether it will be back in the future? We'll have to wait and see on that. It's still a bit of a mystery in real life. Q-Park just coming out of the second sector now. Of course, next weekend, obviously, we are 1 week away from the 2020 sign-ups, which is going to be interesting. And it will be a very interesting one, I think, in my opinion, considering that it will be the last season to use car performances based on real life. What will be the decision making from everybody trying to put a sign up in for 2020? It will be very interesting to see. Will they think short term or will they go for long term? That is going to be a mystery, I think, that's going to be looming around. As Q-Park sets the first time, a 1:31.211. And be interested to see who will beat that. I presume they will probably get beaten by the top teams, but whether he'll be the best of the rest of the midfield in this session, we'll have to wait and see, as he just makes his way towards the very quick chicane. Martinez 2.4 seconds off him in second place in the manor, as Lopez only 6 thousandths quicker than keep up that time, as Garber goes above Lopez.
Very close.
At the moment, Glazebrook goes into second place, the McLaren test driver. Galnell goes to the top by 600ths of a second. I wonder if Lopez got held up by a bit of traffic. I'm not 100% sure. Willows, though, definitely getting held up by Maxim Titkov there. He goes
Willows,
6th. Titkov, well, 8th, because Roke's now gone up into 6th position, as Willows just made a pass.
Overtaking the turn 1! And no crashes.
Well, I think the only way you'd have to be worried about if there's a crash with that is if they start defending. That's what I've noticed with that turn 1. If they're not defending, then it will be okay. Car, meanwhile, whilst we were talking about that, has just gone top by 0.3 of a second, as Mackenzie 14th, Gomez 17th, as Catalan got held up there by Gomez, as Catalan makes a move there on Gomez. And everyone has done a time so far in the session. The Ferraris 9th and 10th. I don't know if Chung got held up by traffic there, but yeah, so I think it's fair to say, obviously the top two are very close together, but I wouldn't rule out anybody else in that fight at this point in time. You never know. Carr could make a fight back in this championship. Gal has looked strong over these last couple of races. I'm still convinced that Garber will find a way to turn it around. Whether it'll be enough to get himself back in the championship, I'm not 100% sure. But it will be interesting indeed to see if he can turn it around. He desperately needs to after what has been quite a rocky season for Franco Garber. That first win that he got in Australia seems but a distant memory. As Lopez gets up to second place there to make it a 1-2. You were going to say pass?
Oh, nothing. Go on, sorry.
No, you were going to talk about Garber, I think, before Lopez went to second there.
Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, in the meantime, Gal has actually gone and split the two Mercedes now to go into second. Willows has gone up into 7th place, so he's got a little bit of a breather in the traffic, but still not ideal for him. Chung's improved, but still remains in 10th position. Motrin in 11th place. And so far in terms of the midfielders, it's Tomaselli who's quickest, ahead of his test driver teammate Oliver Glazebrook at the moment. Tomaselli 5th, Glazebrook in 6th position. McLaren obviously having a very strong season, it must be said, so far this season. Definitely better than what it was last season, currently best of the rest of the midfield, it must be said. And meanwhile, Roke's trying to get past, I think this is Maxim Titkov he's trying to get by here, I believe it is, it's number 25, but not able to. Both of them running the same engine, of course, the Mercedes power plant. As Q-Pop makes his way out of that final turn, and onto the pit straight he will go. Now, in terms of me saying that this track is underrated, I'm still going to stick by it, because I do believe this track is vastly underrated. I think if you get the right regulations, I think this track could be an instant classic, and I think my point was kind of proven in real life, from the real life French Grand Prix this season, because that one was actually quite a good race, it must be said. Nothing boring about that at all. So I think people are probably, I hope, starting to realise that maybe this track isn't as boring as everybody's making it out to be, probably due to the simplistic layout. But that's that. As Gal improved there, Glazebrook also improved, but they don't really move about in terms of positions. As I still maintain this track is better than Magny-Cours in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people say that Magny-Cours is a better track, although I still maintain it's taking it. Well, it just is.
Oh wait.
It is a better track than Magny-Cours. Magny-Cours, I think, in my opinion, is overrated. I mean, the only time you got a good race out of Magny-Cours was when it was wet. It was never good when it was dry.
Magny-Cours is shit.
Oh, is that what you were saying?
Yeah. I was saying about how are people thinking that it is better than this.
Right.
The only thing I don't like about the thing I don't like about this track is that in the air, when you watch it from a helicopter shot, it looks like this track looks like a fucking hypnotism ring.
Yeah. The fact is, right, the Magny-Cours was only good when it was wet, hence why the 1999 race has been considered the best one out of Magny-Cours. But all the other races when it was dry, I can't remember anything memorable. I think not even the 2000 race, in my opinion, was good in the dry when Coulthard stuck his middle finger up at Michael. But that was the only thing that was memorable about it. Apart from that, it wasn't really that good of a race, if I mean.
Tells quite much that somebody showing their middle finger is the most memorable thing about the track.
Exactly. As Glazebrook got up to fourth, as he's just had a bit of a lock up there into the first corner, and
great
pace so far from the test driver. I've noticed that Yuri has still not been able to correct the numbers yet on that car since it had an added sponsor, which I know where it is, by the way, Yuri. It's that one that's just below the number there. That was the added sponsor that got put on in Montreal. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what that sponsor is, to be honest with you, but that's what I noticed got added. So anyway, as we now look at Martinez, he's heading down the straight, heading towards the bust-up chicane with just under 16 minutes to go. And obviously this chicane is a bit of a divisive one, I think, on a lot of people. I personally don't mind the chicane, to be honest. I think I get the reason why it's there, because I feel like, in my opinion, if you get rid of it, I feel like the only overtaking opportunity is possibly gone. I mean, yeah, sure, you have the DRS, which will obviously help with straight line speed, but what happens when the day comes that you don't have DRS? It's not going to be that good, is it? So I'm alright with that chicane being there because it does provide an overtaking opportunity. It does in the OC anyway, as we've seen in both DTM and the top class. Yeah. And one thing, speaking of that chicane, one team that will want to forget about a certain incident that happened at that chicane last season is Red Bull, of course, because let's not forget, Gal and Hutter took each other out last season at that chicane, and that was on lap 1. The Red Bulls will be trying to avoid that if they can this season, if they get ever close to each other. Is this Glazebrook trying to get? Oh, there was contact there, and that was Glazebrook who's just lost his wheels. I don't know how the Manor has survived that somehow, because I don't see that one parked up. No, it has lost a wheel, but that is the first crash of the practice session.
Martinez out.
Martinez has lost a wheel, and where did he lose that wheel? Because he didn't get it from the initial contact, did he?
I just hate this corner.
Oh, he did from behind.
Yeah, so look, so Glazebrook went to the inside, and well, it was a bit of a late move there, wasn't it, from Glazebrook at the last minute, and that's where he got the last bit of damage. Yeah. It was from the second initial contact that Martinez got. So 2 crashes already at that first corner, with just under 15 minutes to go, and even Gal got some damage from that
Gal
as well.
Lost a wing,
yes, Gal's lost a bit of front wing damage as well. He must have clipped some debris whilst he was there, so he'll have to return back to the pits and get a new front wing. So
yellow flag, of course.
Of course, for Martinez and Glazebrook, as Martinez getting hoisted over the barrier. Hopefully, we don't get a DTM moment with the marshalling. If anybody knows what I'm on about with DTM, you'll know what I mean in terms of the Phantom car going across the Mistral Strait. So yeah, hopefully that's not a funny thing that happens, and we end up getting a lengthy yellow flag if we ever have an incident at the first corner. But anyway, Glazebrook being hoisted over the next barrier, and
unlucky for Glazebrook,
he should be able to get into the T car a little bit later on, and So as it's still taking a while for him to get hoisted over the barrier. Car still at the top though by a tenth ahead of Gal. Then it is Lopez in third position, followed by Glazebrook in fourth, Garber in fifth position, followed by Tomaselli in sixth, Willows in seventh, Kipok in eighth, Roke in ninth, and Chung rounding out the top 10 as Carr completes his next lap, as I think Panos has gone away for a bit to do something, as his mic seems to have gone off. Now it's come back on, as Carr didn't improve on his time that time by, and he's going back into the pits this lap. And so for anybody wondering about the tyres, we are using the hard tyre for this one, the white hard tyres for this weekend. So expect the one stop probably to be the better strategy, although you never know, of course. Somebody could pull a blinder on the two stop, or maybe even a free stop. I'll have to wait and see. It depends on the nature of this track anyway, as Carr coming up to a manor. Here is Jay McKenzie, who qualified fourth last time out in Canada, but of course it wasn't the best of races for Jay McKenzie, retiring, and Panos will be back in around 5 minutes, guys, so don't worry about that. He's just gone to do something. But yeah, it was a disappointment for McKenzie because big points could have been on for him at Canada, but it just wasn't to be, unfortunately, for the two-time world champion. His car's having a little bit of difficulty trying to get by a manor there, but he's coming into the pits anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of a hassle for Armar Carr. As far as he just comes out of the chicane. And so as now for Derry trying to get by on a McLaren there, I believe that is, as Garma goes up to second place actually, so Franco Garma getting up 700ths behind Armar Carr at this point in time, and I believe Glazebrook has actually got back out onto the track in the T car, so that's that. So he's not got the pit indicator next to him, so there we go. As Fosbury, we're having a look at a replay of him for some reason. Was there a mistake that we didn't catch, or was it just to check something out? Let's have a look. And I think it was just to check something out from Yuri's end. So that's that. As Tomaselli now then trying to have a look at an Alfa Romeo as Mackenzie goes into 11th place at this point in time after that lap. 3 cars coming down the straight now then. Tomaselli behind one of the Alfa Romeos. Not quite sure which Alfa it is, as they make their way down towards turn 1. We're now right on board with the championship leader, Franco Lopez, for a brief time, because now we look at Franco Gambo. It looks like he made a little bit of a lock-up going into the chicane there, as he was up on his personal best in the first sector. It looked like he made a little error going into there, from judging from it. Let's have a look on the onboard, and yes, you could just about see there the car about to rumble, and you'll just see him there, look, catching a little bit of oversteer that he's having to correct mid-turn. And that'll probably cost him a little bit of time. We'll have to wait and see. But a little bit of oversteer there for Franco Gamba, as he'll now make his way onto the end of the Mistral Straight before heading through this flat-out right-hander, before heading to the Boissé, is it pronounced? This double right-hander. And you can see that lock-up has definitely cost Franco Gamba some time there, because he's 3 tenths down on his personal best. As we now look at Mackenzie, who's got Laura Chung behind him at the moment, coming out of the bus stop, before making their way down towards the second part of the Mistral Straight, before making their way through this long sweeping right-hander. They're currently behind Nicolas Gall at this point in time. He finds himself in 3rd position. As now through the double right-hander we go. Willows meantime improves, but remains in 7th position. So that's that, as I believe Panos is now back. And was that somebody else's microphone? I can't really tell, but anyway. As okay, it is Panos. He is back, and as we look at Fosbury, who is going around the left-hander, and he'll be approaching the final 2 turns. Martinez, meantime, I think has just gone above Titkoff to get up into 21st. So as now Fosbury comes out of the final corner and onto the pit straight, he will now go to complete his lap. I don't think he's going to improve anyway. Meantime, Lopez up on his personal best in the first sector. Let's see if he can continue that in the second sector. Fosbury goes to 15, so he was able to find some time in that last sector there. As Lopez now then sweeping through this flat out right-hander. Let's see what his second sector is like. 500ths up on his personal best, but still not up on his teammate Carr. As Titkov goes up into 20th position there, Gomez down to 21st at this point in time. Gomez has had a bit of a shaky season, must be said, in qualifying at the moment, and looking to see if he can turn that around here at Paul Ricard, although he has been known for not having the best first half of the season, but then seems to pull it back in the second half. He was like that in 2016, and it was the same
Burn 13.
in 2018. Whether that will be the same in 2019, we'll have to wait and see. As Panos just mentioned there, Byrne goes up into 13th position, as Lopez now goes fastest. He's found a lot of time in the last sector. Only by 1,000th. That's a very close gap between the two.
So close by drivers.
Close between the two Mercedes drivers, and so that's that. As Fosbury makes his way through the double right-hander before approaching the left-hander, and he'll soon be approaching the final 2 turns to come into the pits very soon. His teammate, meanwhile, goes up. Well, only improved on his time, but still remains in 19th position, and although Chatfield has had more points finishes than Fosbury, I'd argue that Fosbury's probably had, so far at least, a better run of races than what Chatfield has had.
Yeah, indeed, but oh, sorry, there's something wrong with my mic.
Okay, so okay, Panos having a bit of a problem there with his mic. Hopefully he can get that sorted out. But I'd argue that anyway, despite the memes about the Fosbury era. So
I was just
anyway.
about to make that joke. Yeah, I'm jumping in while Panos has issues with the microphone.
I think it's better now. I don't know.
Okay, I can hear you now. Anyway, Panos, that's fine. So anyway, as now we look at Mackenzie, who's going towards the right-hander. Here is Lopez. Can he improve on his 1 minute 30.679? No, he can't. No, he can't. 2 temps off in the end, and just over 7 minutes to go in this practice session as we're on board with Matteo Catalan, just getting a little bit of a lock-up through into the first turn there. But so far, Matteo has had quite a decent season, it must be said, although, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, consistency seems to be a little bit of a deficit for Toro Rosso this season, and so he'll be hoping to see if he can tidy that up here at Paul Ricard through the long swooping right-hander, as they'll now make their way through the flat-out left-hander as we look at Lopez, who's 14 thousandths off his personal best in the first sector there as he makes his way through the bus-stop chicane. Taking it through the right and left-hander he will now go, and as they'll now make their way down towards the Mistral, as they'll now make a long swooping right-hander. So as he sweeps the car in, and he's 6 thousandths up this time in the second sector. So but let's see what the last sector is like, because as we know, it seems where a lot of the time seems to differentiate in that third sector, as Mackenzie 1/10 down on his personal best in the first sector, and so now Mackenzie through into the bus stop, and at the moment Mackenzie, I would say out of the 2 Renault drivers, I'd say that Jay Mackenzie has been, I'd say had better pace compared to Evan, although I would argue at the same time that Jay's probably been the more unlucky of the 2 Renault drivers. I'm not saying that both of them haven't been unlucky, because they have, but out of the 2 I'd say Jay's been the more unluckiest driver out of the 2, because I feel like he should have a lot more points than what he has so far this season. And I think both, from judging from what I've seen in the stream chat, both Jay and Evan have been a little bit frustrated, it must be said, about the frustration that they have had this season with the team. And who knows what that might do when it comes to the 2020 sign-ups next Sunday that open up. Who knows? But anyway, as we now look back at Lopez, I don't think he was able to improve that time by his sector 3 wasn't that good, but he's now getting a toe off his teammate Armar Carr, so looking to see if he can gain some more time, although it didn't really help in the first sector that time for the Argentine. As they come out of the bus stop chicane, we now look back at Jay Mackenzie as he now negotiates through the chicane now then, taking it in through the double right-hander, and just under 5 minutes to go now then in this session before we get into qualifying, which will start in just over 10 minutes time. Chung improves but remains in 10th position. I've noticed a bit of a trend with Ferrari. They seem to struggle a bit in practice but always seem to pick it up in qualifying, probably looking at long-term race pace.
Maybe they had traffic or something. I don't believe this is a pace.
Yeah, Yeah, I would tend to agree because I've kind of noticed that with the Ferrari drivers. They seem to be lacking a bit in practice, but always seem to pick it up in the qualifying session when it matters. So a bit of an interesting point I've noticed there. But anyway, Mackenzie now then through the Boissé double right-hander. I believe it's pronounced Boissé. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody can correct me if they can about the pronunciation. As Lopez will look back now. In fact, the two Mercedes drivers we're looking at right now. Lopez so far having the measure of Carr this season, hence why he's obviously leading the Drivers' Championship, although Carr desperate to try and get himself in that fight, but as we've seen from Florian Volker in the past, anything can happen. It's a very long season. Who knows, maybe Carr can find some strength in that second half of the season like Volker did, and maybe get himself right inserted into that championship fight.
A lot can happen in the season.
Indeed, and
a lot can happen in the season, especially in the OC.
Indeed.
I mean, Lopez can have a DNF and Carr wins, so he closes up.
Indeed.
It's so simple sometimes.
Definitely. And who knows, maybe the Red Bulls can get themselves back in the fight as well. As you see in the last few races, Gal starting to show some of his old self back in the car. Still yet to get that win, though, that he's been eluded now for over 2 seasons, it must be said. His last win coming at the 2017 Canadian Grand Prix. Feels like a long time ago, if you ask me. And he's desperate to end that drought as soon as possible. And he has shown signs that he's getting close to doing that, although he did miss out in Montreal and he did miss out in Spain. So I wonder when the time will come for Gal to finally end that winless drought that he's currently going through at this point in time. As meantime, Carr getting by on the Toro Rosso there. As Willow's meantime improves but remains in 7th position.
Ooh.
So there's now a car between
Still
the
7
two.
though.
There's a car between the two Mercedes, but it won't be for long because Lopez is going to get the Toro Rosso into this chicane, which he does so. And they're probably going to be where we're going to see, obviously, the main overtaking during this race. Turn 1, that chicane, and of course the bust-up chicane at the middle of the Mistral Straight. So, obviously, key overtaking points to look out for during the course of this weekend. As Glazebrook now then just goes around the double right-hander, still being stuck behind. I believe that was Kupok he was stuck behind. As Lopez, obviously his lap's probably been compromised whilst being stuck behind that Toro Rosso, so there shouldn't be an improvement. With just over 2 minutes to go in this practice session before we get into the qualifying session to determine the grid for tomorrow's French Grand Prix. We've got Burns stuck behind an Alfa Romeo at this point, that Alfa Romeo being his former Haas teammate Gabriel Gomez, but I think Burn now will try and get him into the chicane. He's found a gap on the inside, and I think he should be able to get him anyway, as his teammate Mackenzie is coming into the pits this time by the 2-time world champion, who I've mentioned probably been the most unluckiest driver this season, it must be said, because I do feel he deserves a lot more points than what he should. Obviously he's aiming to get back into a front running car as soon as possible. Obviously missed out on a Red Bull seat for this season, and he's determined to try and get back into a top seat for next season if he can, but or at least in a very competitive car for next season. Maybe he could be thinking long term for when we get to the fantasy area in 2021. Maybe that's something that people will consider when making their choices for the 2020 sign-ups that will be open next Sunday. So that's that really. As Garmin, meantime, he's on improvement. Can he try and beat Lopez off the top? Not quite. Lost time in the last sector. As Gal's coming back into the pits.
Let's see Gal.
Gal's coming back into the pits. So that he won't be able to improve. Unfortunately, we still don't.
I forgot about the pit exit.
Yeah. Obviously, the
pit
entrance. We haven't got the updated pit entrance yet on Grand Prix 4. Hopefully, that gets made in the future. But for now, we're stuck with the very odd pit entrance.
Also, third one fix, please. GP4 modders.
Yeah, a DAT file fix for turn 1. Hopefully that will come in the future. Like we've had a little bit of a DAT file fix for Zandvoort. Who knows whether that will do much for GP4 OC. I'm pretty sure it will be on the calendar next season, judging from that, but we'll have to wait and see. It's all confusing if you ask me, but there we are. Anyway, we've got 7 seconds left. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. George Roach just getting enough time in there to start another lap, so he'll be the last car to complete a lap on this run. Videri now then coming across the line. I don't think he's going to improve, and he remains in 14th position.
No.
David Kupop meantime finding himself in 8th position, and he remains in 8th position. Joseph Wallows remains in 7th. Ditkov not able to start a lap. Glazebrook's coming back in. Here is Garber, who's up on his personal best again. Although we need to wait and see how the third sector is like, because that's where the drivers tend to lose a lot of the time. Garber now then, across the line. Can he get to the top? Nope, loses time again in that last sector and remains in third position. We now look at Rosetta Martinez, who just makes his way out of the final 2 turns. And now come out of that final corner, heading down the pit straight. And let's see what Martinez can do. Across the line he will now go. And I don't think he's going to improve anyway. And no, he doesn't. Obviously, where the start-finish line is, it's a little bit weird on Grand Prix 4, but it is what it is. As Byrne now then comes down the pit straight, he's on improving, but let's see if he can keep that up in the last sector. And across the line goes the Irishman. And he goes up to 10th, so he gets into the top 10, pushes Chung down outside of the top 10. Fosbury didn't improve that time by. Gomez didn't improve either, got held up. Here's Roland Motrin making his way out the final turn. Of course, his teammate was the last one to cross the line, so we'll be waiting for him to finish off the practice session. Motrin now then coming across the line, and the Hungarian doesn't improve. And here's his teammate to finish off the practice session. Roke now then coming across the line. Roke currently in 9th position. And across the line he goes, and he remains in 9th position. So there you have it then. That is the practice session over. The top B being Franco Lopez, Amar Khan, and Franco Garber. So what did you make of that practice session, Panos?
Dominance for Mercedes so far. I think they are the favorites for pole, with Red Bull close, and McLaren still continues their strong pace. And I'm a little bit worried for Ferrari, but we shall see about it in qualifying. So yeah, look like
yes, indeed. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a brief pause. The stream will go offline, but we'll start a fresh one up for the qualifying session. So we'll be back with you in just a little bit. But for the meantime, I'm been JW97. He's been Panos Sakoris, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session ahead of the